Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
I'd like to know if you could give us some pointers on dealing with the triggers.
Well, remember, you can't get triggered unless you have a belief that you can be triggered, right? The triggers happen when we feel like we have no control. The triggers happen when we feel like we're a victim. The triggers happen when we feel like somebody's in our space, right? Those are all triggers. And so if you understand, if you're able to stay in the space of, it's an interesting thought you've got.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.
Hi, everyone. This is Patti Conklin. My guest is Les Jensen, and we have known each other for years through the Facebook community, and I certainly know some of his work. But Les, tell us about you.
Well, sure. In a curious way, my soul put me in front of really powerful television transmitters. These things were a lot of power. Our power bill was $7,000 a month.
Whoa!
We made 1 million watts of power with this immense amount of power.
Yeah.
And I wasn't spiritual or anything like that. I was a TV engineer. And unbeknownst to me, here comes a cosmic 2x4. And it cracks me open.
Yeah.
And the way it cracked me open is in an unexpected moment, I released an immense amount of energy out of my persona, just like turning on one of those transmitters.
Yeah.
And the engineer brain in me caught that and said, wait a minute, wait, what just happened? What was that? And that was 25 years ago.
Wow.
And so what it did is it cracked me open like a bug hitting a windshield. And now I've had a podcast for 12 years. I've written a bunch of books. My Kool-Aid is really hinged around the power of us as human personas, and more specifically, the power of love through us as human personas. Hopefully that helps out.
Yeah. So what was the first cosmic 2x4? Will you share with us? Was it
Sure, you bet.
Yeah.
You bet. I was imploding on myself. I was being compressed and my life was getting smaller and smaller. And I wasn't really aware of that going on. And it put me on the couch. I saw a shrink for 2 years. And there was a particular episode when I got cracked open. And he wanted to talk to me about anger. And I'm like, what? I'm not an angry guy. What are you talking about? Anger is not in my wheelhouse. And thank God he persisted, because he put out his hand and he said, come on, push on my hand. Show me your anger. I'm like, this will be lame. And I pushed and nothing really happened. And he kind of got up in my face and he said, you know what? You're safe. I'm safe.
Wow.
It's okay. Can you show me your anger? And this time he put out his hand, and I tell you what, Patti, some magical valve in me opened up and whoosh, this immense amount of energy streaming out of my persona. I'm like, what the crap are you? And
Right.
the anger, this is real important. The anger's like, I don't care. I don't care how you experience me.
Yeah. As long as you are aware and experience that I'm here.
Yeah. So that was emotional karma because anger was a huge part of my life and I didn't know it.
Ah, wow. Wow. I mean, was that moment where you looked back and had reflections in life
Oh,
where
you bet.
all of a sudden you realized you were responding in anger and not realizing you were responding in anger?
I wasn't responding in anger because I was scared to death of anger.
Ah, got it.
My ego would avoid anything, anything that might,
Yeah.
not whether it will or won't, if it might elicit an angry response from me, the answer was no. So I wouldn't fight with my wife. I
Yeah.
wouldn't stand up to my boss. And I was a doormat pretty much.
Yeah.
And it was like I said, I was compressing, my life was compressing. I was starting to get ulcers. I was grinding my teeth. I had digestive tract problems. All of that pretty much vanished once I connected with and released that anger out of my persona.
Wow. Wow. So how did that move you into the spiritual realm or the metaphysical realm or your podcast, whatever you want to call it? What door opened in your psyche that said, this is what I want to do now?
Well, the first year or three after that event, I was just scratching my head
Mhm.
and kind of paying a lot more attention to myself as a persona. And then it's curious because it was like my soul said, here's some practices we're going to start. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to start some practices.
Yeah.
And over time, I started clearing out my persona. And as I raised the vibration of my consciousness, I ran into a whole new tier of wisdom. And it started showing me a whole new dynamic for my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my ego really resisted. Les, write a book. Oh, hell no. Les, write a book. What? Who wants to hear what I have to say?
Right.
So my first book took 6 years, and my second book took 6 months
Wow.
because I taught my ego to not be intimidated by the vision of my soul and the passion of my heart.
Wow. Perfectly said. Perfectly said. So what was the title of your first book?
It never got published. It's called
Uh-huh.
Swimming with Your Boots On,
Uh-huh.
Our Human Relationship with Energy.
Uh-huh.
My second book was called Citizen King, the New Age of Power, and that is published.
That is published. Talk to me about that.
Well, you can't be a powerful person with your ego alone. You just can't. Your ego is really addicted to knowing what the outcome is going to be. Your
Yeah.
ego is really addicted to making choices that worked in the past. It wants choices where it knows what the outcome will be.
Yes.
And your soul's got this grand vision of your life that your ego cannot even comprehend.
Mhm.
But that's quite pointless unless you can teach your ego to not be afraid,
Yeah.
not be afraid of your passionate heart. So in hindsight, I've been writing since 2006. I love to write.
Wow.
Who knew? My ego is happy because I followed the inspiration of my heart and my soul, but
Yeah.
my ego sure didn't want to do it right out of the
Right.
gate. So
Right.
Citizen King, the new age of power, is the power of your soul once you teach your ego how to work in harmony with your heart and your soul.
How do you get people to do that?
You don't get people to do anything. They have to choose
They
it.
have to choose. And when they choose, is there a step by step? Is it an automated talk to me about that. I mean, I agree. We can't make them choose. We choose for ourselves. Back to personal responsibility.
Sure.
But how do people find that that energy within them, that personal responsibility, that power, and letting the ego feel safe?
Sure. Well, we're really rather complex beings, and there's no single sentence answer, but I can certainly talk to that.
Talk to
An easy thing for you to do, real easy. Go buy a bunch of Post-it notes and put one by the bed, put one in the kitchen, put one in the car. And what's going to happen is your mind will be busy doing something else. You're washing the dishes, you're unloading the groceries, and a single sentence will pop in your mind. Volunteer at the homeless shelter, write a book, go back to school. And what's really, really important is stop what you're doing and write down the sentence verbatim. Don't think it out. Don't do anything with it, but write it down.
Yeah.
And now it's got some permanence in your life. You'll see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if you just keep it in your head, your ego rushes in and says, write a book, that's stupid. And poof, it's gone.
Yep.
So your ego literally consumes such a majority of your consciousness that your heart and soul don't even have say, and therefore have no sway in your day-to-day life.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. So talk to me about everyday life. We've got a lot going on in the world. I know we're, a few months away from air date, so I'm going to be dating us a little bit today.
Sure.
But, we've got war taking place between Ukraine and Russia. And we also have tragedies that just took place in Texas with elementary children and teachers being murdered. How do we as a society help those who don't help themselves, don't want to help themselves, or are not even awakened to understand that there's a piece, just like your anger of not being aware that the anger was there? Is there something that we can be doing, not just putting out energy of just, helping, but, in doing your shows and your podcasts, how do you look at making people more aware of how they're truly feeling?
Well, I'm not responsible for anybody else's consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so everybody's free will is a very valuable thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to impede on that.
Yeah.
But with that said, the most important thing I can do is master my own domain, my own sovereignty,
Mm-hmm.
my own dominion, if you will.
Yeah.
What happens, especially a very powerful thing to do, is meditation. And I recommend no thought meditation, because we're pretty much suffering from ego overdose in the collective. And the way we're going to get out of ego overdose is to become aware of it. And we won't become aware of it if we're stuck in our ego. Our ego's going to plead the Fifth Amendment. Who, me? Who, me? Are you kidding me?
I didn't do anything. Yeah.
That's right. And so it's really important, because 2020 did a very curious thing. There's a gigantic void that didn't exist in 2019.
Yeah.
Our normal got turned on its head.
Yeah.
So now there's a gigantic void of what normal is.
Yeah.
And everybody and their dog who feels like they need more power is going to swoop in that void and try to establish their own dogma.
So true.
And so we're going to want to be able to discern, to be able to flush out, if you will, the people with less than ideal intentions for the collective, and there's going to be plenty of them. And the way you do that is listen oh so very closely to their language. And the way you did that is by working on yourself.
Yeah.
Meditation is a very powerful thing. And meditation will kick your own butt because it's going to show you, for many of us on the planet, a vast majority of our thoughts don't serve us.
So true.
It's really just backwash. There's no real value to it. And so we're wasting our consciousness on that does not serve us.
Yeah.
And so what can we do to help the collective? Get our own house in order. How do we do that? Meditation. And also heal our relationship with our emotions.
Talk to me about no thought meditation.
Well, it'll kick your butt.
Yeah.
It'll go something like this. It's very easy to do. I recommend a kitchen timer, not your phone, because put your phone in another room, turn it off. You don't want to be interrupted. Set the timer for 10 minutes and stop your thoughts.
Sounds so simple, and yet I imagine it's just so hard. And Les is doing it right now.
Well, I did it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I went up to an hour a day.
Wow.
And what happened, if you're in the process of thinking, you're not available for your soul, so to speak. In other words, we can have the monkey mind all day long. And it's in the silence of thought, and in that silence is kind of like a magnifying glass, where if any thought arises in our consciousness, it's easy to detect because there's nothing beside it. It breaks the silence, if you will.
Right.
And so a lot of your subconscious thinking can be discovered in that silence of no thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does
It's
that make
fascinating.
sense?
It's fascinating watching your brain when you do that. just from a personal standpoint of watching neurons just stopping.
Right.
And when you went there, and you're very practiced in it because there wasn't any while you were doing that. So that was interesting. Where do you go with your podcasts? I mean, I know I've been on your show, so I appreciate that. But is there any type of messaging that you like to put forth on your podcast, or you let things flow, or what?
Once the mic's open, you don't really have that much say in what comes out of your guest's mouth. You should know that.
I do know that. But I was just thinking maybe I could get some pointers out of you real quick here.
Sure. Well, the premise of the New Human Living radio show is what would benefit the listener within this episode. By the end of this episode, what would empower the listener to embody a bigger sense of self, a more authentic sense of self? And I mean, our mythology, for example, Jesus said, hey, come on, step on up. You're going to do everything I have done and more. And so we're really not operating anywhere near our potential as human beings. We're not.
Right.
And so I hunt down guests that break that stigma up, shatter that dogma in our psyche.
Yeah.
To encourage us to believe in ourselves, to encourage us to look for that bigger archetype, so to speak, within our own psyche, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I think that it's a challenge. I keep going back to it's a challenge, and I'm not sure why I'm going there today. But I'm hearing from a lot more people who are challenged at finding themselves, finding their authentic self, because there just seems to be so much noise out here, and
Sure.
they're not discerning what's right for them. And they want that magical answer of, what's right for them. And there is no magical answer. I mean, I think it's a journey, and one that we continue to grow, and we use the pieces that work for us and the pieces that don't work for us. And it really comes back around to that personal responsibility and deciding which pieces are you going to, if you go with point A and it doesn't quite feel right, then it's okay to go to point B. And
Sure.
it's okay to go to point C if things aren't working out. There just seems in my world to be a lot more of that feedback from people. And I'm wondering if that's happening in your world.
Well, authenticity, I think, can be a slippery slope because the ego of the guy that was bullied in school wants to be a cop so he can pack some heat and
Mm.
not be bullied anymore.
Yeah,
That's not an authentic desire to the soul, but
right.
it is an authentic desire to the ego.
To the ego. Yeah.
So my soul's authentic desire was for me to write books, and my ego said, not only no, but hell no.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where
And
my ego is. It's like, I don't want to write. No, no. Yeah.
and so to really honor the authenticity of your soul is not a an easy thing to do out of the gate. But the more like, so I've honored my soul. I've written a bunch of books, and I feel wonderful because of that.
Yeah.
I feel wonderful because of that. And so now when a new idea comes in my mind, my ego knows to say, hey, ooh, a new package. And I coddle it, and I don't bash it, and I don't try to vet it or decide its worth,
Yeah.
because it came from within me. All that was done before it arrived.
That's right.
And
That's
and so when it comes in, it's like, okay, how can I honor this today? What can I do to move this forward today? And when I take a step towards fulfilling my life purpose today, my heart, my soul, and my ego all feel a sense of joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment
yeah.
today.
Today. I mean, that's so important, right?
Yes, people are looking for that. They want a
Yeah.
sense of meaning. They want a sense of fulfillment, but they stay in their head.
They stay in
The
their head.
meaning and fulfillment comes from your heart and your
Yeah.
soul.
Yeah. People had said through the years of conferences and so forth, how do I know that I'm on my path? And my response would always be, since you don't know what your path is, how can you be off it?
Right.
Just
Yeah.
enjoy today
Yes.
in what today is, and working towards, like you said, allowing your ego and your soul and your persona to be in peace with each other, to be in joy with each other. And that's when you're doing things. You've got things going on. And I think that that's important for people to really understand that. So what is one of your big takeaways of life I mean, obviously that's a huge one, being as authentic as we can today. But what's life kind of taught Les Jensen?
Well, there's a couple of things I could say, but in this moment, what feels good is you're safe. You are safe. Thank God your ego has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Because the continuity of your consciousness, in other words, the essence of you that was there the day you were born, you didn't have an ego the day you were born.
That's
But
right.
your soul consciousness was there, and your soul consciousness is here, and your soul consciousness has a continuity that cannot be touched by human intention ever. You are safe.
Yeah.
You are safe. Let that sink in. Think about that for a while, because there's an ocean of peace within you now. Peace will not force itself. By its very nature, peace will not force itself. It has to be rediscovered at the core of our heart and our soul.
Yeah. Oh, so true. Beautifully put. Beautifully put.
Before the cosmic 2x4 cracked me open, I had no clue. I had no clue that I had an immense amount of an emotion that I never experienced. Listen to that. I had an immense amount of emotion that I never experienced that was dominating the vast majority of my everyday decisions.
Wow.
How could I be free? How could I be happy? How could I be expansive and honor this vast potential that I am?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm this is a multi-decade project to create a place people can go to learn how the mechanisms of the human persona. Karma is as impersonal as gravity. Karma has nothing against you whatsoever. Your emotions are impersonal.
Yeah.
What gets us stuck in dogma is our minds.
So true. So true. One of the things I typically say when I'm teaching is, it just seems like forever in the last, 20, 25, 30 years, people would say, your soul is the most important, and then your mind, because it allows you to be so brilliant, and then your body's the temple that houses the two. And I'd always switch that around and say your soul, most important, but your body is the second most important, because it's that in which soul speaks, and your mind is the least important, because
Right.
it allows you to go into the I can't, I'm not capable, I'm fearful, I'm, and
Yeah.
allows you to move all the excuses into why you can't do something. So I kind of put that towards the end. It's like, it's there, but what's really going to be important? What do we really want to feel? So yeah, I think your classes are going to be awesome, and love to help you publicize that a little bit as you're getting ready to do that. So Les, thank you so much for being a guest on today's show of Healing Within, an Adventure Inside. And I appreciate you as always, my friend.
Thank you, Patti, for having me on this show. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you.